So you're a new sales leader. That's great. But beware of some common pitfalls you'll want to watch out for. We're covering that in this episode of Closing Time. Hi, my name is Chip House. I'm CMO at Insightly, and welcome to Closing Time, the show for go-to-market leaders. Today, I'm super excited to be joined by Amy Volas. She is a strategic advisor to a number of different companies, especially those in the early stage. She's also founder of Avenue Talent Partners and host of Thursday Night Sales. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you for having me, Chip. It's good to be back. Lovely to see you. Got a lot to talk about.
We do have a ton to talk about, and it's great to have you back. So clearly, if you're a new sales leader, right, there's a number of potential things you need to watch out for. But it's different probably when you come up in an organization versus starting out as a high level leader in an organization. I can certainly relate to that. I came in as a CMO here at Insightly, and certainly I've worked my way up historically. But marketing is a different animal than sales. So talk about the sales side of that.
So at Avenue Talent Partners, we place executive sales leaders with earlier stage startups, VP of sales, and VP of CS. And this is a common thread of a conversation I have pretty much every single day, where it's like, it's one thing to be given the seat at the table. That's called getting the job. It's a whole other ball of wax to step through the door and to continue to get it. And I think that's the intersection, like that. The minute that you walk through that door, just because you got the job, the party is just getting started, Chip. You and I both know this. And CMO is not very different than the sales side, than the product side, than any other side. When you get that executive seat, it's all about how you conduct yourself in that seat. And that starts on day one. It actually starts before day one, if I'm being honest. It starts with when you accept the role, how are you communicating your excitement about that? How are you already starting to think, even if you haven't resigned yet, or you've resigned and you've taken a vacation, are you leaving breadcrumbs behind to reinforce that you're excited? Even if you need a much needed break, hey, you're self-aware, you're setting expectations around the, hey, I'm offline, but I'm so excited to get started. And thank you for the grace of understanding that I need this time off. These are the three things that I'm geeked out to dig into with you. It's that piece that reestablishes the fact that you were the right person for the job, that you're excited, that you're ready to dig in, and you're already thinking about it. So it starts before, and then it starts the day that you walk in, and it's reinforced by every action, every decision, every email, every Slack, every text, every word that you speak.
So I want to talk through both scenarios, Amy. So let's first talk about when you're promoted in from inside of the company, right? And so you're going to know the other people inside the company. You're going to have some familiarity, hopefully, with the business. Since you've been promoted, you probably know the product pretty well. You know the other departments pretty well. You have some relationship with the marketing team. So talk about that scenario, sort of the new sales leader from within the org.
I find that when you're getting promoted internally, one of the risk factors there is that there's a little bit of entitlement, or I got the job, this is familiar to me, I can take my foot off the gas a little bit. And the answer to that is absolutely not. Also, if it's an earlier stage company and this is a stretch role and there isn't really anybody above you in sales, so you were an individual contributor and now you were promoted to the sales leader and you're reporting to a highly technical founder that has never led sales before, you now have the blind leading the blind, and you better be ready for a very interesting journey ahead that's going to challenge you in ways that you've never been challenged before. And you've got to be resilient, and you've got to be able to see blind spots that you never anticipated seeing. You've got to be able to fail fast and learn from that and adapt and figure stuff out, because your founder, they don't know. And you know what? Just because you wanted the role and you hear some things and you read some things, you don't know because you haven't done the role before. So if you're getting that promotion, it's about exercising that muscle of being uncomfortable with being uncomfortable and figuring it out. And a lot of the time, that's a really big bridge for people to traverse.
Well, it's kind of the Peter principle, isn't it? Sometimes, right? Because you're a good salesperson, right? You're probably one of the top salespeople. If you're getting promoted, doesn't mean you're a great manager, right? And so I always kind of wonder, anyway, how our sales organizations deal with taking their best salesperson, moving them to a leader. You're kind of counting on them adding some of their magic sauce to the team, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't do it.
Um, Chip, it's in the world that I live in, right? So it's a little bit different. In Insightly, you're a bigger company. You have different layers. You have leaders of leaders. And so you have a function where you have career pathing, and that person's going to be set up for success in a much more significant way. And the use case that I'm thinking of, where it's like, okay, these are early days, and I hired a few salespeople, and I'm the founder, and my top person is amazing, and I want to promote them because they say they're ready for it, and I don't know what else to do with them, and I'm afraid to lose them. I strongly discourage that. And the reason being is I get brought in a lot of the time to clean up after a sales leader doesn't work out. And this is one of the main reasons why. And it is that blind leading the blind a little bit. And it's not because you didn't want it to work out or the intention was bad. In fact, the intention was really good. It's just you don't know what you don't know. And it's one thing to read something, it's one thing to go through a training. So I think about this, like content is the training, content versus context. Like how do you actually use it then versus competency? And those three things are not mutually exclusive just because you came up through the ranks, to your point.
Makes sense. And so anything else that comes to mind for the promoted up through the ranks new sales leader? Well, I mean, in terms of pitfalls, Amy, yeah. I mean, anything else that they need to watch out for?
Make sure that when you're coming up through the ranks that you realize if you've been an individual contributor or if you've been a frontline manager and you're becoming a much larger executive, the higher you go, the more visible the role is, and the more it's not just about what you want to be doing. It has a lot to do with your entire team. So in leadership, when you get into it, if it's not about your people, you may want to rethink the role. In addition to that, the higher you go, so you're a CMO, Chip, your role is about marketing. Guess what? Your role is also about the entire business. And if you can't play nice with others in the sandbox, you may not agree with your sales counterpart all the time, or your engineering counterpart all the time, or your accounting counterpart all the time, but you all have to come together. It's like a perfect orchestration of things. The CEO is the maestro, but the rest of you are all instruments that come together that make the music sing, right? And if that doesn't happen, that's a real big problem. And so I think when people get promoted, especially in sales, I see this thing where it's like sales against the world, and it's like, cut it out. It's an ecosystem. You have to work well with everybody. So this is applicable advice, Chip, for when you're coming up through the ranks, but also when you're coming into an organization as a leader as well. It's not just your agenda, it's how it fits into the overall puzzle.
Makes perfect sense. In graduate school, I had a professor that would say, the higher you climb, the higher a monkey climbs, the more you see his butt. And I think that's true.
Yes.
Because when you're a leader, you're just exposed, right? And you have to be very, very conscious. It's a different kind of role to move into, from being an awesome sole contributor where you really know your craft, to moving into a leadership role and trying to take that craft and teach it to others and now become sort of a player in the organization, right?
Absolutely. That was a wise professor. Here for it.
Yeah, I thought so too. It stuck with me, of the few things that it stuck with me from
I'm going to pay
graduate
it
school.
forward. So you just paid it forward to me, and I'm going to pay it forward to others. I love it. I mean, who doesn't want a little monkey business analogy?
Exactly. Need some monkey business. So Amy, let's pivot to the other scenario where you're hired in to a sales leadership role in a new business, right? And so you have the business to learn. Maybe in the SaaS space, the space we're in, you have to learn the product, and you have to learn the customers and the problems you're solving, unless you came from specifically within the industry and you already know those things. And then obviously you have to get to know the individuals, who are your strong performers, who are your weakest links, so to speak, and what do you really need to work on? So where do you focus first, learning the business or focusing on your team?
I think you have to do a little bit of both at the same time. So that's where time management really comes into play. When you're coming through the doors, it's all about listening. So I want to listen to what's happening with my team. I want to listen to what's happening inside of the business. If I'm coming in as a sales leader, Chip, I want to listen to what you're doing, right? I want to listen to what operationally the business is doing. So how do we think about when I have to go to procurement and if there's a bunch of security reviews and procurement takes 6 months and it's all this stuff, like, are we equipped for that? What is our internal process? How do we think about that today? And then I'm making notes, right? Because what I don't love that happens when you're coming through the door is I'm just listening to do this to let people know, like, I'm so happy to be here and what keeps you up at night and how can I help you be a better seller? And Chip, I'm here to work with you. And all the while, I'm just doing this. And in the meantime, in the back of my mind, I'm like, I got my own playbook and I'm just going to force it in here. That is the worst thing that you could ever do. Because here's the thing about playbooks. While you've learned a thing or two, mastered a thing or two, and probably messed up a lot more than a thing or two,
Yeah,
your playbook is merely a toolkit that's a collection of things that you have mastered and learned over time. But it's not a one size fits all. It's kind of like when you're building a house or remodeling a house is a better
sure.
analogy, which I just went through. I have a more than 100-year-old home. You start getting into walls of things, the toolbox that you brought, and you get into a wall and you open up Pandora's box and you realize, oh, there's no insulation in this wall. It was newspaper that fell
Hmm.
down. My toolkit no longer applies. I got to bring in the insulation dude and his
Yeah,
tools. And that's a completely different ball of wax. My point in making that analogy is the only way that you really know what to do in your role is to understand, just like in sales and the power of discovery. And so I'm a big fan of you got to understand your team, what you're walking into, who's doing what, who's really strong at what, right person, right role, right time. And then you have to understand how it all correlates to the larger ecosystem of how do we do business internally? Who do I go to for what? And managing those relationships and strengthening them and building them. Oh, and by the way, sales leaders, you better know like the back of your hand what your ICP is, that you're able to demo your product yourself, whether you're not selling, but you need to be able to help your sellers navigate. And the only way that you can do that is if you can do the job yourself. These are all things that you have to listen for and learn and master coming through the door.
it makes sense. And so once I think through as a leader, say I get all those things right, right? I come in, I get to know my team. Kind of at the same time, I'm learning the business, I'm learning the product, I'm learning about the customers. What are some of the markers and checkpoints that I have to know if I'm doing a good job, to know if I'm doing what I should be as a new leader?
So, this is what I talk about a lot where coming through the door, I want to set expectations early and often with my executive team. So, first and foremost, it's going to be with my founder or my CEO. What does good look like? And let's establish those milestones together for the first 30 days, for the first 60 days, for the first 90 days. And no, I'm not talking about a 30, 60, 90 little tap dance that you do to get the job. That's not it at all. I'm talking about mutually agreed upon expectations of these are the milestones of what I'm going to do, of what you can actually expect from me coming through the door. And then when we sync up weekly, bi-weekly, whatever our cadence is, that's what we hold as a sort of anchor together. And that's what we talk about to make sure that we're on the same page. Because that's the thing is people will say, we'll talk in a quarter and all these other things didn't happen. And then it's a big surprise. And that's a lot of what leads into the turnover rates that we see in the industry is because you talk about it when it's way too late. As long as you're talking about it early, some of the stuff can be course corrected and the wrong assumptions don't need to be made. It's when it's like, get out of my lane. I've got this. Just let me do my thing. I've got my playbook. Those are big red flags for me all the time where it's like, just let me do my own thing. I don't need to tell you. It's like, well, actually, yeah, you do because we're working together and your decision affects all these other things. It's like a flywheel. So that's the biggest way to know, is to figure out, what does good look like together coming through. This is also a really important trick when it comes to interviewing. Before an offer is extended, these are the things to tether yourself to make sure that you're aligned, so that on day one, it's not this like big scary thing of, what is my onboarding plan? It's like, oh, we talked about this, and it's like a really comfortable shoe that fits, and you just walk the road together.
Makes great sense, Amy.
The road isn't always easy to walk together, but you know what I mean.
For sure. So any final thoughts? There's some great stuff there.
The biggest final thought is, manage expectations early and often. And I love the famous quote, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Thanks so much, Amy. Really appreciate you joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you. I appreciate it, Chip. This was lovely.
Of course. And thanks to all of you for joining Closing Time. Make sure you click subscribe, then tick the bell so you don't miss any episodes. And we'll see you at the next episode.